welcome to another episode of Behind the Dreamers. I'm your host, Jennifer Loehding, and we are talking to the achievers, the creators, the magic makers, and the dreamers. These are our friends, these are your friends, and they are living the extraordinary. Well, today we are going to be diving into the world of entrepreneurship and innovation with a guest who's made significant waves in product development. Our focus is on individuals who not only dream big, but also turn those dreams into reality, impacting the market and those around them. So I'm excited to chat with him. You're going to get to hear from him in just a few minutes. But before we do that, we need to do a quick shout out to our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Walt Mills Productions. Need to add excitement to your YouTube videos or some expert hands for editing? Look no further. Walt Mills is the solution you've been searching for. Walt is not only your go-to guy for spicing up content, he's the force behind a thriving film production company with numerous titles in the pipeline. Always on the lookout for raw talent, Walt is eager to collaborate on film and internet productions. With a background deeply rooted in entertainment and promotion, Walt Mills leverages years of skills to give you the spotlight you deserve. Want to learn more about Walt and his work? Head on over to waltmillsproductions.net and let your content shine. All right, so now that we've done that, you're going to get to meet my guest today, David Ask. He's a luminary in entrepreneurship and the creative genius behind StatGuardPlus.com. His invention has secured a prestigious spot in over 3,000 retail outlets, including giants like Home Depot and Lowe's. Beyond his commercial success, David leads 2 mastermind groups for the esteemed ISI Mastermind, nurturing a community of forward thinkers. He's not just about business. He's also deeply committed in personal growth, overcoming challenges, and helping others find their unique purpose. As a lead coach for Dr. Andy Garrett's True North Blueprint, he guides individuals to become the most resilient version of themselves. There's also more to David than business. He is also a talented singer, gracing stages nationwide with a voice that has often been compared to Bocelli and Josh Groban. So, David, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Well, thank you for having me. This is a treat.
It's going to be so much fun. Don't you love those bios? I always have fun. It's my favorite part of the show.
They are. And of course, I hired someone else to write that, just a little bit of a tee up. We all know that, on face value, right? You kind of hit the high points. And at the same time, there's a whole lot in between to get there. And, and there's never a straight path, is there?
Nope. And that's why we said the challenge part in there. That's the beauty of this show, is that I always feel like we don't really shy away from the lessons learned in this. I always tell people this show is about what you do, why you do it, what you've learned along the way, because usually in the learning phase, there's some adversity that had to come about that, right? And then we take that and we use it to inspire others. So that's what this whole show is really about.
That's great. That's awesome. Love the mission.
Yeah. So let's talk about you. Let's talk about what you've got going on, because you've got a lot of things here. I mean, I feel like you're got your hands in a lot of different areas, but I think the overall thing here is a lot of inspiration and creativity throughout all of this. So I'd love to know tell us a little bit about the product, what kind of led to that, and where you're going.
So it's kind of interesting. I remember, like the word entrepreneur. I remember hearing about people who were entrepreneurs growing up, that kind of thing. And what was weird is there was a bit of a mixed reaction, with regards to, people that kind of had that title, as it were. Like some people would kind of roll their eyes, and some people would be, a bit more kind of astonished that someone, kind of had different irons in the fire and had multiple revenue streams and, just a different way of operating. Because most people, I think the statistic actually is, the personality of a true entrepreneur, there's only about 5% of the population that, kind of really, have those personal, characteristics and so on. By the way, I'm sure you're probably familiar with the book, The E-Myth, and by Gerber. And we just I went through that with a mastermind at the Nashville Entrepreneur Center just for the last 8 weeks. And it's fascinating, right? You've got in a business, you have what he defines as an entrepreneur. You have a manager that's kind of in the middle, and then you have a technician that's doing the work. And it's fascinating how many people, start up a business and realize that they're sitting in the wrong seat on the bus. And that's kind of my story. Back in the day, I guess you don't know what you don't know, right? So I just figured, hey, I'm going to pick an idea and run with it, and I'm going to do everything. And so largely most of my life was trying to, do a side hustle, all these types of different activities and so on, while simultaneously not only working a full-time job while I'm trying to get my side hustle going, but then trying to sit in every seat on the bus and operating in massive areas of weakness and feeling, imposter syndrome and stuck and frustrated and all that kind of thing. And I'm grateful that I, was turned on to some, new ideas, right? And largely that's because I started hanging out with people who just thought differently than I did, and reading books and podcasts and everything else that really helped shape the way that I'm operating now. So you asked the question, and I'll kind of get to it this way. So what am I doing now? And I'll just kind of back into things. So right now I run a business called Quorum Global. And yes, I have a thermostat guard called the StatGuardPlus. It's a stat guard with a combination lock. And of course, what is that? It just goes over thermostat so people don't tamper with your thermostat, which is typically your highest, cost every month, especially if you're in a retail or, a commercial facility. And anyway, I was in facilities management at a large telecom chain for many years. And of course, we use stat guards in all of our stores and call centers, because if you've got more than 2 people in any facility, everybody's jacking around with the thermostat. I mean, it's like this funny joke in our culture. And heck, my mom and dad, growing up, that's the only thing they really fought about was, what was the temperature at night.
Yeah.
And
I'm laughing because that's been conversations in our house.
Yeah.
Don't touch the thermostat.
Well, so what's funny though is, I'm doing facilities management, and of course nobody can keep up with that tiny key. So my brother-in-law and I came up with this idea. It was technically his idea first, and then we both kind of ran with it together. But we jumped into the deep end of the pool and just started, trying to understand, what does it take to make this product? And, everything from molding to plastics injection, processes and all those things, prototyping and so on. And we did everything wrong. I mean, except the product. The product turned out great, but, we kind of followed this idea that if you build it, they will come. And that's just not true. It's very limited thinking. So for 4 years, we had, 7,000 thermostat guards sitting in a garage, and we're trying to get it out there and figure out how to grab attention and all that kind of stuff, which we all know is not easy. So anyway, jump ahead, right, a decade, and I ended up buying him out. So, my wife and we ended up figuring it out. And during that time, though, I realized a few things about myself. I am a creative. I'm definitely that 5% entrepreneur. I don't like details. I'm not a manager. I'm not a technician. I'm the guy who sits up at the top level. Thus, by the way, I love the title of this podcast, as a dreamer. That's me. And much of my life, I hung out with people who were managers or technicians. And I mean, they didn't even have the paradigm of an entrepreneur. Therefore, that was kind of a joke. Well, somebody calls themselves an entrepreneur. That's just because they don't know how to do anything, and they can't stick with anything. And
right.
Well, guess what? I have a wide skill set, a wide variety of things that I love doing. I am definitely a creative. I'm working on 9 different products right now.
Wow.
I've recorded 3 records. I've sung on stages all over the world. I had a children's book published about 5 years ago. I'm working on another children's book right now. And what's really wonderful is I have an income stream, being in retail, that allows me to do a variety of things. So I realized, it was, you got to have something that's winning, right? To kind of, cover the bases, because if you're wondering how you're going to pay your mortgage every month, forget about personal development and creativity. That goes right out the window.
Right.
Whatever Dave Ramsey said, money is pretty close to air. Try to live without it.
Right.
And so here's what's fascinating though is I'm 49 years old, and I've just kind of backed into this self-awareness in my 40s, and I realized, that I didn't know what I didn't know, and I was just thinking all kinds of things that I thought were true that just weren't, and operating in areas of weakness and not finding the right people to help me. And now I feel like I'm kind of living in that flow state where I get to stay in the creative seat and help others do that, for that matter. Because I think I'll say it this way, there are things that are true about us, right? But those truest things, those things that top 10%, the things that just really light us up.
Yeah.
I like to say the things that give our goosebumps.
Right.
I love operating in that space.
That's wonderful.
And part of that is inspiring, right? Which means breathe life into someone who needs life breathed into them, because they were where I was 10 years ago. And man, I wish I had, several people around me to be like, hey, David, you're heading in the right direction. You've got this. How can we help you? I believe in you. Like put some wind in my sail. But man, for years, it was a slog, because not only did I not know what I was doing, I didn't have the people in my camp to help and really just believe in me.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that. I just had this conversation. You touched on so many things, and I can definitely relate to your creative part, because I feel like I was going to ask you when you were talking about being around the management type. Did you feel like you were kind of being stifled? Like you just feel like you're being sort of smothered?
Yep.
Because I just, when I'm around creative people, like I'm excited. Like if you called me up right now and said, Jennifer, I have an idea, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it right now, because ideas get me excited. When people have ideas, I think of solutions. I think we're solving things, we're creating, we're manifesting, we're doing. I get lit up. When I get around people who start trying to organize things and giving me details and all, it's not that it's a bad thing, because I think we all have strengths in certain areas.
Yep.
I just start feeling very heavy. It gets heavy for me. And so I can understand it. And I think, yes, you're right. I think there are a lot of people that when we come into this, we start trying to really, because as entrepreneurs, we really do wear many hats. And that's one of the things, I was to talk about the many years I was in Mary Kay, we trained on wearing these different hats in Mary Kay. We were the salesperson, the marketer, the CEO, we were everything. I realized for me, like I had this light bulb moment one day. I tell this story. I was actually on my treadmill in my house at this time, and I was going to train on the Strength Finders book. And, I think you picked like the top 4 or 5. And I was going to have to train on them. And I remembered having this light bulb moment where I realized what it was that I had actually loved in the network marketing space and what I actually really hated in the network marketing space. And it was because I was having to do things that I really didn't, I had to work harder at them. They weren't things that were natural for me, or things that I felt like I excelled in. Like I'm a people person. I'm a seller. I'm the person that's going to get you inspired, get you across the finish line, the cheerleader. You start getting me into the weeds with the details, and I got to sit down with the pen and paper. And not that I can't do it. I was really great in math and science, but you get me into that, I'm going to get bored. I'm going to start getting overwhelmed. And so I really think when we, as entrepreneurs, recognize where our gifts are, and we can start really honing in that area, that's when we get into that part you're talking about, that flow state. We start doing the things we love to do. And for you, that's being creative. And I can certainly resonate with that, because like I said, I think it's, being creative is so much fun. I think everybody should learn to find a little bit of creativity in their life. There's so much fun in that.
Yeah, good word. And what's interesting is, what you're kind of describing is just basic self-awareness. And I think that quite often, most of us are just not. We think we are, but you mentioned, when you're acting in the weeds, as it were, you feel kind of stifled and that kind of thing. Right. Guess what? Here's what's fascinating is, how can we tell if we're in, kind of our right zone, or sitting in the right seat on the bus? It's a clue. Yeah, but it's that clue. It's how are you feeling? And if I'm constantly feeling, that heaviness and like I'm being trapped and all that kind of stuff, we might need to operate in that space for a little while. But for heaven's sakes, we need to understand this isn't working, and I need to pivot here eventually to get into the that flow state, as it were.
Yeah. And you made a point, you have to pay your bills. We know that. And I know exactly what you're talking about, the Dave Ramsey thing. We used to say that in Mary Kay. I mean, like, what are you going to do? It's not having money ranks with breathing, And so I do think we have to put in our dues. There are times we do have to do things we don't want to do. Like there are things we studied in school that we absolutely hated. Like for me, history and English, I hated those 2 subjects. I didn't like them. We had to learn them, right? So I do think we have to do things that we have to do. But I do think, when you can get into a place, if you're in something and you're doing it every day and you're just miserable, like you're saying, that's the time to look and say, how am I feeling in this, right? And I think this is also a good call out, maybe if we're talking about companies, to the employers to pay attention to their people, because if their people aren't happy in the positions that they're in, this may be a good time to look and make sure, are we utilizing them in the best places that they need to be in, right? Like, move them to another place or let them go.
Well, and we live in you mentioned StrengthsFinder. I mean, we live in a time where dialing in on self-awareness is pretty easy. One of the other, businesses that I run, I'm writing a book called The Guardians of Grit. And I work really closely with Dr. Andy Garrett on building that self-awareness and understanding what the difference between resiliency and grit are. And it's really important to understand those, but even more so, the idea of how are they established? And for most people, getting up quickly is more about him being, I don't want to be embarrassed in front of people looking at me. And accomplishing something is more about becoming someone and having a resume, as it were, to kind of explain to the world, well, I'm finally somebody, or at least I'm not a nobody,
right?
As opposed to having a really bedrock understanding of who you are and not searching for fulfillment anymore, operating in the fullness of who you are to experience fulfillment. But not trying to, fabricate something to be, to experience it. There's a big difference.
Yeah.
And so I'm really passionate about that because it's been a huge, shift in not only in my life and my marriage and parenting and just how I operate as a friend. But man, I tell you what, I remember, when I got into Home Depot, if I'm just being really vulnerable here, I thought that was going to solve a problem, like give me some type of an identity. Well, at least I have a product in Home Depot and I can brag about it or something. Or if I was going to go sing somewhere, I'd want to tell somebody about it. And, it didn't solve any problems. Not one. And when I realized that my truest authenticity, right? We get the word authenticity from the word author, that, that the way that God put me together is absolutely fantastic. And when I just operate in my natural state, most of the time, I feel natural. I feel genuine. I feel, courageous and clear and free. And as opposed to just trying to generate something all the time and having to be on and becoming a human doing and not a human being. It's just exhausting.
Yeah.
And so that's something as I'm getting older, right? I'm 49 years old and I feel like I'm on much more of a kind of a legacy path with regards to my mission and my purpose in life. Not that I don't like creating products and doing things like that, but way more passionate about helping people establish that true north, plumb line in their own life, that bedrock, and then helping others around them do the same thing.
Entrepreneurs, are you ready to level up your leadership skills? Tune in now for an exclusive offer designed just for you.
This is my time.
Did you know 63% of consumers prefer businesses aligned with their values? Recognizing your core values isn't just vital for business growth, it's the bedrock of effective leadership. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or an aspiring creator, identifying your core values is a key step in constructing the framework of a successful leader, enabling you to lead authentically, expand your business, and live life on your terms.
I never settled on play, putting the kettle to flame. I go 100 all day, foot on the pedal, no brakes. 10, 9, paid on my dues, waited in line. 8, 7.
Are you ready to access tools to kickstart your leadership journey? Unlock a treasure trove of insights and get your free resources at www.linktree/Jennifer Loehding. Take that crucial first step toward realizing your leadership aspirations and elevate your leadership game today.
Ready to shine, brighter than all of the...
That's fun. I think that gets into the part where we start talking about the wisdom stuff, because I'm in my early 50s and I just had this conversation. It's like, I did an episode with a girl on my Starter Girls podcast, and she's like a 2-time TEDx speaker, really neat deal. A lot of her work's been praised at like Cornell and some of these higher, universities. And she talks a lot about showing up. And she actually, on that episode, I just released it, she talked about what it means to show up. But the premise that we were talking about is that when we show up authentically and present, how we have this impact on others or, those around us. And so I think, when I listen to you talk, I think it comes from that place of, I think for so long, we're groomed to have success, and our success is driven by those achievements, right? Whether it be something in our work, whatever. For me, I was a runner, and also, I did a lot of stuff. Did a lot of cool things in Mary Kay, set company records. But I realized it's been probably in the last few years that it's like you said, it sort of has shifted where it's more about me being authentic and true to myself and showing up right for the right people. Right. Yeah. And it's in a lot of different areas of my life. It makes an impact in the work that you do, the relationships, the personal relationships, your kids, your marriage, all of those different things. But I think it's not something that you just wake up and have happen. So when we talk to these people, right, like if we tell them, they look at us and they go, what are they talking about? Is this like old people jargon? Like, what is this? Yeah. Right. Because I think it develops over time. Our priorities start to shift a little bit and we start looking at the world differently and our place in it. And I think that's what's so great is because then we can try to show that to other people through the work that we do in the community and the things that we create.
And it's funny. I think there's a lot of truth there. Like it's time and just becoming a more mature person helps give perspective on things. What's fascinating when I started working with Dr. Andy, I'll be honest. I thought that words like identity and authenticity and stuff like that was just a bit woohoo,
right?
And or woo-woo or whatever they say. But here's what's interesting is when you have someone ask you the right questions, doesn't matter how old you are, you can actually dial in on some of that stuff very quickly.
I agree.
And, like, for instance, the word identity in our culture, it's been just totally misunderstood and hijacked. And so when you understand, how am I woven together different from the person next to me? Like our kids, right? They come out of the gate incredibly hardwired. You can tell someone's little essence when they're just months old or even weeks for that matter.
Right.
And they're not thinking about being authentic.
Right.
Up until they're like 7 or 8 years old, until the world slaps them around a little bit and then they start questioning everything. But when you're 3, 4, 5, and 6, you're just doing your deal. Right. But as adults, we start feeling that pain and pressure and then we start questioning everything.
Right.
But when you start identifying your authenticity, right? What did the good king, weave in me, and I identify those things that's different from you. For instance, that's my identity. I've identified what do I believe most of all in this life. We talk about core values. What does my core happen to value more than anything else in this entire world? And you start getting that language down, right? What impact do I want to have? What gives me goosebumps? What just infuriates me? That's going to be different from the person next to me. My strengths, my virtues, what type of impact, literally, I like that dent in the universe thing. What type of impact, if David Osk shows up and punches something, right, with my body, with my essence, what is that shape?
Right.
And it's different than someone else's. And it's fascinating, when we start establishing all of those things, we identify, we're literally just identifying those things. Well, then we show up in a way that is more true to our nature. And when we follow the clues, right, I just feel better in my own skin. And I'm not handing the keys to everybody around me or everything around me to tell me who I am. Man, it's amazing the shift that happens. And you start feeling more comfortable in your own skin. You remove the question mark that's kind of inside of you. And by the way, when people don't remove that question mark, of course they feel it, but everybody else does as well.
Right. Yeah, it's hard. That was a very good explanation. Thank you for all of that, because it is hard to articulate that to people. But I think, in listening to all of that, in the very beginning, I want to go back to, you said somebody asking the right questions. And I think that goes back to finding your people, right? Like finding your people who can ask the good questions, because,
it's a big deal.
When I'm working with clients, if that's the one thing that I can tell people, it's like, who are the people that you're around? Who is your circle? Like, who are your people that you're engaging with every day? Because we don't know the impact of that until we know the impact of that. Those of us that have had great mentors, like, I always say I was lucky enough that in the space that I was in, I had mentors for 22 years. That's probably the best thing. If I tell you anything that I took away from it, I learned a lot of great skills. I learned how to sell and coach and do all those things. But I think the biggest thing that I realized coming outside of that, and I just had this conversation yesterday with my husband, I said, I sort of miss Like I network now. I do a lot of networking. I know a lot of people in Dallas, but I purposely go out and I network because I need a community. I need a circle. I need people, because for those 22 years, I had that. It was a given. It was woven in our company culture, and we had it. And when I came out of that, I realized how many entrepreneurs don't have that. Like they don't even know the value of that, right? Until they get in and they realize how important it is. So I think the right people asking you questions, it doesn't matter what age, like you said, the right people, it could be somebody young. It's just finding those people that can ask you those good questions. And it's, I think that gets back to who do we put in our circle that's going to inspire us to think critically, to grow, to expand our horizons and step out of our comfort zone a little bit, because those people are going to ask you good questions.
Did you, it's so great. Did you ever see that movie, Meet the Parents or Meet the Fockers?
Yes. Yes.
And they talk about the circle of trust,
Yes. Yes.
Well, of course it's kind of this joke, but here's what's fascinating, right? As parents, how do we know that circle of influence is a law like gravity? Yeah. Because as parents, we instinctively do not want our kids caught up in the wrong crowd. Right. Because we know full well, I'm talking a visceral, oh no, please don't hang out with those kids. And that is what it is. But guess what? As adults, for some stupid reason, we've thrown that out the window and we just kind of slide into life and just let it happen. And I'm not saying that you can't be with people that might need your help. But if that circle of trust, if you're actually asking questions, how do I do this? How would you navigate this? What do you my wife and I are kind of struggling here. What would you do? You better be darn just careful, who you're asking those questions to. And quite often, by the way, it's not your peers. My son Parker's in his first year in college, and he came home one weekend and he said, Dad, he goes, I just got so many great friends, and we're helping each other do this, and I'm asking these guys advice for this and that, and in general, I'm like, man, what a great time to have some a good band of brothers, right? But you know what? I cautioned him, and I said, Parker, they're 18 years old, just like you. They've not lived enough life to give you really wise counsel. So I said, I would encourage you, not only me, because the door's open here, but find some other guys whose lives you admire and you think they're winning, and ask them, say, hey, would you be a mentor to me? And it's amazing how many generous and good and kind people are like, you're darn right, I will. And it almost makes them level up at that point, because they're being, when somebody says, I want to emulate the way you operate. Are you kidding me? I mean, it's what an honor. And at the same time, there's a little bit of fear involved. Like, I don't want to screw up and wreck this kid. But as adults, man, we're so cavalier about those decisions. And I guarantee you, you will in every single way become like the top 5 people you spend most time with.
Yeah, that's good, David. Yeah, no, I agree with you on all of that. That's good. So you're singing, you're getting to do some cool stuff there. I think that's really fun. And you do have a great voice. I have looked at your work, so I congratulate you on that, commend you on it. Good stuff.
Thanks. We did a concert last night, actually.
Did you?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So my daughter is actually taking a violin tour with her violin school to Germany and Austria in July. And she said, hey, Dad, why don't we do some house concerts to raise money, for the trip? Because it's a pretty big trip, and, we're all going. And so anyway, we've done a few of those. We've got a few more on the calendar. And so it's fun to do, just smaller little gigs like that. And at the same time, Kate and I have been able to stand on some stages together that have, like I'm looking at a non-disclosure agreement here that we can't even talk about. So I'm super, but you know what I mean? It's like, I'm so grateful that I get to stand in somebody's living room and give them goosebumps. And then we get to, go stand on a kind of a little bit more of a fun stage, as it were, and do that type of thing as well. So it's such a fun outlet for both of us.
How long have you been singing then?
Well, it's funny. Somebody asked that last night, and my mom was a music teacher, and I felt like, no, we were pretty much forced to sing when we were little. It was like,
you've been doing it for a while.
Get in the car, we're going to the nursing home, and you're going to sing for everybody. And but really, I started taking it seriously probably when I was maybe 15, 16.
Okay, very good. Well, you're great, and I think that's awesome. And
Thank you.
my daughter's in Germany right now. She's traveling.
Okay.
You guys are she is loving that area over there. I told her, go stop in Austria. She's not far from there right now, but
Yeah.
she went on a 3-week, saved her money up. It's my middle child.
Yeah.
Saved her money up, went on a 3-week. So she's in her second week now, excursion up, started out in Dublin. So she was there for the parade, the St. Patrick's Day parade.
Oh, wonderful.
Really neat. So yeah, she's traveling. So you guys, she's loving it. I'm sure you guys are
Good
having
for
an
her.
amazing time there.
Pretty excited. Yeah.
I'm jealous.
We've done Kate's school. They've done Hawaii. We went to Italy 2 years ago. And this year, it's Germany and Austria.
It's awesome. Good for you. Well, you're doing amazing things. I love it. I love that you're, I tell you, this show is all about living the extraordinary. And I think the extraordinary, one of the consensus that I hear from all the entrepreneurs, when I ask them the question of like, what is success and how do we define the extraordinary? It always comes back to kind of the same things, and that's doing the things we love to do. And I think that always comes back to authenticity. I
think it's so important. And I would say that, especially if there's someone a bit younger in your 20s and so on, please don't compare yourself to someone in their 40s. Figure out what your definition of success is now. I'm talking today. You might not have tomorrow. Figure out what success looks like just today. You got to have some dreams in that, but man, do your deal. Walk your path. Help others walk their path, but enjoy yours, and don't suffer, with the sin of comparison, as it were, because it will just suck the life out of you.
Yeah, it's hard to do with social media. I know. I feel like we've all been there, but I think I think you touched on so many points. Like I didn't even have to ask you because you answered so many of my questions in this whole dialogue we had. I think it was good because I really think that when we get past that whole, I think it's freeing when you just get to that place where you don't care so much and you're just like, this is who I am. I kind of sort of adopt the idea, either take it or leave it. You don't like it. It's even like with my show. I was telling someone this morning, I'm like, these are my shows. I do what I want to do. I'm the one paying the bill on the shows. I'm the one working the content out. I'm the one doing all the producing and putting it out. It's my show. This is how I roll. And, the people that like it show up and they like it. And the ones that don't, that's okay too. They can find the ones they like. And so I think when you get to that place where you accept who you are and all these things you've talked about, your strengths, your weaknesses, and you realize, hey, I'm okay talking about this thing that I'm not really good at. Maybe I need somebody to help me with that. But I'm really good in this area and I really want to shine in that area. I think when you get to those places, it's just freeing. And so I think it's pretty nice what you said.
It absolutely well said. And in kind of discovering those things and nailing them down, it's like, show yourself a ton of grace. Like, you're not trying to earn something here. Like, just be really kind to yourself.
Be kind to other people too.
Yeah.
Do that too. Listen. All right, David. Well, this has been awesome. Congratulations on all your success and all the things you got coming up with the singing and the books and the records and all the things you got going on. If our audience wants to get in touch with you, maybe they want to learn, keep up with you, learn more about you, follow your music, whatever. By the way, y'all go check out his singing because it is really good. It is. But let's say they want to come find you, David. Where do we want to send them?
Just go to my website, davidask.com, davidask.com. And my links to my other businesses are on there as well, if you're curious. But yeah, if I can do anything to help, no strings attached, just let me know and I'll do my best.
Awesome. We'll make sure too, when my editor, he does good. You get all the bill. We say get the bills and whistles on there. We'll get the link on there so they know where to find you. And then, we'll get it over to you. I'm excited. It's been fun. I've enjoyed chatting with you. Thanks for imparting all your wisdom. And like I said, congratulations on all your upcoming success, whatever all that is.
Thank you. Very kind. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Listeners, we appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in. And of course, if you enjoy the show, head on over, give us a review on Apple. You can check us out on YouTube, hit that subscribe button so we can keep sharing all these incredible stories with these amazing people. And as I always say, to live the extraordinary, you must start. I was going to say something else, but in order to start, you got to make a decision. So you guys take care, be safe, be kind to one another, and we will see you next time.